Good everyone. I hope you guys have an amazing day. So what I'll do today, I'll talk about an interesting topic which is quite important in my experience, not just from a only from a sales cloud consultant journey, but also from a consultant journey in general, right? That is the customer-centric discovery, right? Everything we do in a Salesforce platform, or for that matter, any other platform you take it, right? We do it for our customers because at the end of the day, right? You're a consultant. Your job is to help your customer achieve their business outcome, right? Now, at times, we might be get too hooked up to the solution we wanted to sell. We might uh, overlook the customer real problem, and instead we say, hey, this is what we wanted to sell. This is what is there in the place. So this is what we think because based on other customer experience, which may be true to some extent, but every customer has their unique set of problems, right? So one size may not fit for all. So that's why the customer centric discovery is very important. The customer discovery, I'm going to teach you from Trailhead, right? Because I don't want to create a new slide. Why to duplicate when I can teach you from the documentation online, right? Now, Salesforce have a reputation, right? Because the place where I work, Salesforce does similar stuff, which is very good. Because obviously, when you want to sell your product, you need to understand your customer. So they often, help you build up your roadmap and kind of stuff, right? So without going much into the details, so what I wanted to say is that, if you wanted to sell a product, it's very important to understand the core business challenge of a customer, right? You need to get insight into your customer business challenge, and you need to understand how you can help overcome that challenge, and you need to make sure that your customer understand the new opportunities that can generate from the current challenge what they have. So there are two ways to look at the challenge, right? One, you can look at the challenge as something which is annoying, which costing customer a lot of money. Other way to look at it as it's a potential opportunity to help your customer achieve their business outcome in a better way around by doing things which they haven't thought about in the past and adding extra layer of insight so that you can work with the customer to give them that roadmap to say, hey, I understand that you're facing this challenge at this stage, but I think you might need to look into this aspect as well so that these two things work well together to solve a bigger problem, right? So that's where you know the path to success in general looks like for a consultant when you're engaging with the customer. Know your customer, be your customer, connect with your customer, create with your customer, right? That's the simple logo. You should remember that. It doesn't matter you, like I said, you're going to take Sales Cloud certification or not. The core concept for any consultant should be the same. Know your customer, be your customer, connect with your customer, create with your customer, right? Now, when I we're gonna look at each one by one, so that you have a better perspective. Know your customer, right? That's where this comes into picture. Know your customer means the industry your customer is associated with it. Right? For instance, you wanted to sell Salesforce to a customer, but you need to understand what kind of industry they are associated with. Are they associated with the health or education or finance, right? Based on that, your solution will differ. Your recommend the choice of, sorry, the product which you will recommend to customer will differ, right? For instance, if you wanted to recommend something to do with health, right? You obviously can recommend Health Cloud or public sector solution. If your customer is into education, then obviously you can't recommend Health Cloud, right? Because it makes no sense. So you can recommend uh, Education Cloud. If uh, if your customer is in finance, you can recommend the Finance Service Cloud, right? Or if they're doing the field service, you can recommend that. Or if they are pretty much into case management service, you can recommend Service Cloud. So your solution, the things which you recommend to your customer would depend on the industry they're associated with it, right? That's the first thing you should understand. Like I said, one size will not fit for all. Just because just because Health Cloud, let's say, is famous in that specific country, doesn't mean that every customer associated with the Sales Cloud will be using Health Cloud, right? So, and you also need to understand what's the trend that's happening in that industry. Like for instance, I'll give you my example, right? From my experience, I did a lot of work for Ministry of Health New Zealand, or Health New Zealand, or in New Zealand, in Maori we call Tifataora. Um, sorry, my apologies for a bad pronunciation. I think I got it right. So I did a lot of things, a lot of development for them. I don't want to get into nitty gritty, just an overview, right? I was involved in a cancer screening project, so we did a lot of work on Salesforce. Now, the challenge there, right? The Health New Zealand has a different challenge to solve compared to, let's say, a tiny clinic. Just a general example, right? Tiny clinic might have to worry about the PMS systems. They might have to worry about submitting a claim, but when we talk about, let's say, cancer screening, right? It is a framework based on clinical guidelines, based on certain pathways, clinical pathways that needs to be enforced in place, right? Based on in the people you're dealing with. So everything get reported to Health New Zealand. Just an example, I'm saying. So it's very important that you understand your customer, what you're trying to do, right? So like I said, one set of customer, even though they're associated with a similar industry, might have a different set of challenge or different set of problems they want to solve compared to a different set of customer who are still associated with the same industry, right? To health customers, different set of challenges, different set of trend they wanted to follow. So you need to understand that, right? That's why it's very important that you sit with your customer, understand the requirement. That's where the business analyst plays a very important role, right? Because the business analyst's main role is to not only just to sit with the customer to get the requirement and fill in the documents, it goes beyond that, right? They do the process mapping, they talk the language of a customer, the way the customer understand, and also translate the language to a developer can understand, right? So they play a much bigger role. So, um, sorry, I digress. But the reason why I wanted to mention that because it's very important to understand your customer, right? That's why I said, what is the language of the industry? In health, you have if somebody talks about HL7, you should know what HL7 is, right? Similarly, in finance, if you talk about credit and debit, you should know what it is, right? I mean, that's the kind of language you should understand. The customer can understand, right? Because if I go to, let's say, finance industry or banking customer, right? For instance, Salesforce have, there's a product called Encino, which is usually targeted at the banks, right? It's a Salesforce. It's built on top of Salesforce technology. Um, Now, if you go to a bank, right, and you start talking about, let's say, health messaging system like HL7, and a banker will say, I have no freaking idea, mate. What are you talking about, right? If you go to say, a health provider and start talking about the banking terminology, they will be puzzled, right? So that's why it's very important to understand the language of industry, right? Now let's get uh, a little bit, dig, let's get into the details, right? So when you associate with a customer, right? When you are a consultant, when you wanted to do consulting service, right? You need to understand what is that business wanted to do, right? What are all the values they believe in, right? And what's the current initiative they've taken, and what strategies they have in place, and what's the challenge they're facing, right? If you could get answer to these questions, you're pretty much in a very good position to start the negotiation process or to start, uh, you know, demonstrating your product capability because at least now you have a fairly decent understanding about the customer problem, the options what they have, the tools they're considering, the obstacles they're facing, right? So it's important you as a vendor or you as a consultant to know. Yeah. And also, you know, you should also sit with customer. Like usually, what I do, like I'm an architect. I get associated with different, business groups, different teams, different development teams, integration teams, data teams. So, and my first thing I often do, I try to sit with the customer to understand customer in the sense is the business group, right? Because I work for a very big government organization in New Zealand, so I mean I'm a consulting architect there, so my what I do, I try to understand, let's assume the business group has a different customer, right? That their problems, what they're facing, their day-to-day activities they do, their pain points, what they go through. So it's very important you sit with those people, to understand the problem, and based on that, you can frame a roadmap or solution to support them, right? Or initiative you can drive. So that's it's very important in my opinion. I hope that's clear. I hope I'm not using any jargon. So this is pretty much the same. The be your customer. It pretty much tie up with your know your customer, and be your customer means step into the shoe of your customers and then try to see the problem from their eyes. Right. That's very important. Maybe log in as a user. Let's say, for instance, if a customer um, is using a portal, right? Let's say Experience Cloud portal, and they are getting a lot of traffic through the portal, but the most of the complaints which customer is getting is also about the portal, right? So what you can do as a consultant, try to log in as a user, try to see the pain point, and then try to see the customer to understand, the best possible outcome could be, recommending a different component or redesigning some of the stuff or using a different technology tech stack behind the scene or improving the change process what they have, or let's say provide knowledge based article if your customer is facing an issue related to the client wait time, because it's better to provide some knowledge article based on the customer query while they wait. So that kind of things you can work with the customer. I just give you a very simple example, right? I'm not saying that's the problem. That's the only problem out there, right? There are a lot of different problems. And if you're a consultant, you should always take problem as an opportunity. The opportunity to, first of all, to showcase your skills. Second, an opportunity to help your customer. Third, to drive a strategic outcome for the customer, helping them with their business outcome, and at the same time helping them with the cost saving, right? So that's very important from a consulting perspective. So that's why I believe this topic is important. From a sales cloud perspective, you may get one or two questions, but even if you don't, I mean, I still believe that this topic is very important, right? Because I've seen a lot of people, and they focus on certification, they focus too much on the tech stuff, right? I understand it, I get it, technology is important, but you're using technology to solve a business problem, right? If you don't ask the right question, then there's no way you will be able to help your customer addressing the concerns, right? So that's why, you might be saying that this guy repeat too much, but I have to repeat. I've seen people in Salesforce ecosystem doing lots of mistakes because they don't ask the right question. And when they don't get a job, they wonder what's going on. I got a lot of certification. Who cares, right? Who cares about the certification? It's not about certification. It's about adding the right value to your customer. That's the most important thing, right? It's not about your time. It's not about how much certs you have. It's about the right outcome you bring for your customer. That matters the most at the end of the day, right? If a customer sees that, they'll be pretty impressed. They will be stoked, right? So that's pretty much I wanted to cover from this customer centric discovery aspect. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from it. If you have any questions or concern, you're always welcome to ask me in the comment. Right. That being said, you guys have an amazing Thursday. Adios.